So this is the second time we're doing this. Unfortunately, you guys never saw the first time because I screwed it up. I thought I could phone in with a segment. It didn't work. We had all kinds of issues. When I tried to download the file, it was 20 seconds long, so it was a mess. So we're doing it again. We're bringing back Mammon, the legend member, and so thank you for being here, sir. Very very happy to have you back. He is a long time, not just watcher of the channel, but he is a appreciator of old school basketball. Absolutely loves 50s, 60s, 70s basketball. So that's what we're talking about. And kind of the premise he had for this segment that he wanted to talk about, which, by the way, if you are a legend member and you do join us on this Johnny Talks podcast, you can pick out your segments and you can pick out the conversation. So that's what he did. But he doesn't just want to talk about Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell because we kind of did that last time we sat down together. He wants to talk about the other guys, the guys who are basically overshadowed by those legends, by those giants of the game. So Mammon, who do you want to talk about, man? Who do you think is most overshadowed because of those other legends? Who from that era is most unjustly overshadowed?
I'd say there's many ways you can take that conversation, right? And it definitely depends on what portion of the era you're talking about. Definitely, if you go on like earlier in the era, you could say like Elgin Baylor, like pre-injury Elgin Baylor, military reserves era Elgin
Yeah,
Baylor, back when he was averaging, it was ridiculous. I mean, he's averaging the high 30s a game for a season, and then he has two straight postseasons. If I look at this tab real quick, it's just like 38 points per game in two straight postseasons, from the 61 postseason to the 62 postseason.
yep.
And I think with Baylor, what we often, or why he often gets overshadowed when it comes to his 38 points per game. Well, what does that matter if Wilt is scoring 50 points per game in a season and dropping
Right.
100 on the Knicks?
Yeah.
um and what does his 17 18 rebounds matter if it's against Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, Bob Pettit, right? But I think the thing with Elgin Baylor is it was his combination of everything. It was the scoring prowess, it was the tough shot making, it was the hustle, it was the rebounding. He was an elite playmaker passer, and I think that often gets overshadowed, especially in an era where Bob Cousy was playing, Oscar Robertson, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that especially when you look at those 1962 NBA finals, I mean, it's not just that he was averaging close to 40 points a game, 18 rebounds a game, and 4 assists a game. It's that he dropped what is still an NBA finals record,
61.
61 points
Yep.
in game 5 of that series. And I think something that gets overshadowed with that 1962 series is we always talk about, the 30 points, 40 rebounds in game 7 by Bill Russell, and rightfully so. He was extremely clutch in those game 7s, 10 of them, but he was absolutely phenomenal, and he was a big reason why his teams won. But I mean, if Frank Selvey hits that shot
Yeah,
in game
for sure.
7 of the 1962 NBA Finals, we're not talking about Bill Russell's absolutely phenomenal game. We're talking about,
True.
in a whole different light. Elgin
Mm-hmm.
Baylor averaging 40 in that series, the 61. But those things would actually be brought up in conversations where they probably already deserve to be. But we just don't ever hear about it because people just forget about the runner-up team, right?
Yeah.
Especially, that long ago. When it comes to the 1960s, especially since a lot of the games weren't televised to the same extent that they are now, it's really easy for us modern fans to not embrace and truly understand the context of all
For
those
sure.
games. And we just kind of run with the narratives, right? The narratives that are kind of
100%.
timeless. That Bill Russell was a winner, and that Jerry West, Elgin Baylor were just, always losing to the Celtics. And that's
Right.
all we really ever say. And then, Elgin Baylor's career gets derailed by injuries, and then just kind of everybody forgets, especially once we have the Michael Jordans come along. So I think
Yeah.
that that's really the man that's overshadowed.
Well, that's kind of the nature of sports too. It's a make or miss league. Like you make it, you're celebrated as a hero. You miss it, it's like, why is he the type of guy who folds under pressure? And that's the thing. Even like with Bill Russell's games, like yeah, he was 11-1 in the NBA Finals, but a lot of those game 7s were one possession games, and so things could have happened where now someone else is getting immortalized for for that championship or that series victory if like just one or two baskets had gone in or not gone in that case. But yeah, like you said, I really think that's fascinating because there was so much that worked towards Elgin Baylor being overshadowed. For one, he played for the Lakers, and so it's like it's very, very hard to stand out with the Lakers because there's so many greats throughout the history of the game. Like you pointed out, he played in 1962, which one could argue that that's the most historically significant season in NBA history other than viewership. But like just for like what happened that year, Wilt's 100-point game, Bill Russell's MVP season, Oscar Robertson with the first ever triple double season, and then obviously what Elgin Baylor did, 61 points in the NBA Finals, and yeah. He averaged a freaking stupid 38.3 points per game. The only reason why people never bring that up and it doesn't qualify is because he spent time in the military and only played 48 games, and their qualifier is 50 games. That's usually the qualifier for those all-time lists if you want to be seen as like, because that would be outside of Wilt Chamberlain. That'd be the second greatest scoring season of all time. It'd be Wilt, then it'd be him. And so, yeah, absolutely crazy. Chick Hearn always used to call him Mr. Inside, and Jerry West was Mr. Outside, so they had that yin and yang into their game. But, I mean, even if you adjust for the era with rebounds, he got as high as 19.8 rebounds per game in 1961. And in 62, which is the year we've been talking about, 18.6. And he was a 6'5 small forward. Like, that's crazy. And so, like, imagine Dennis Rodman but as a prolific and incredible scorer. And that's what Bill Russell was. I mean, not Bill Russell, sorry. Elgin Baylor was, in the 1960s. And so, yeah, really, really unfortunate that he is, overlooked to this day so much. And even by Jerry West, too, who, is the logo. And West's great. We have tons of respect for Jerry West. But, yeah, Baylor doesn't get talked up enough. I remember I had him in my top 20 of my greatest players of all time. And there were people who were trying to crucify me in the comments for that. Like, just thought it was outrageous that he'd be that high. And I was just like, man, look into Elgin a little bit because that dude was incredible.
In terms of the Lakers, like, they've set a standard where you have to just win championships in order to, like, be not talked about, but it's just, I just think it makes, like, the hierarchy of, like, when you're going to speak about these people. That's why he kind of goes to the bottom of the list, unfortunately, just because there's just been so many Laker greats. I'm sure if he played for a different franchise, he'd be talked about significantly more, You see, like, the 61-point game in the finals, like, to me, that's where it's, like, it's super legit. Like, you're going against the best of the best team in the finals.
Sure,
like, no matter what era it is. Like, anytime when you're in the finals and you drop in 60, like, that counts no matter what era you're in because you know that you have the toughest competition at that point. I know, didn't he was the one that kind of like he created the fadeaway, right?
The fadeaway, it's hard to say. Wilt Chamberlain was doing the fadeaway back then. There was a lot more hook shots back then than anything else. Yeah. I think so. Baylor was awesome, but I think one of the things to me that really stands out about him is he was like, man, such a good finisher around the rim. That layup package was nice. There's a beautiful highlight that you could find on YouTube of Kobe kind of breaking down his game and how he drew influence from his game and how other greats after him have kind of drawn some of that influence. And the only Laker in franchise history to have a statue outside of Staples Center. I keep calling it Staples Center, and I will keep calling it Staples Center, not Crypto. But to not have a championship ring. Like, he got a statue anyway, even though he didn't have a ring. But that brings me to my question for Mammon, which I feel like is kind of interesting. Do you consider Elgin Baylor an NBA champion based on the fact that he was on the roster of the 1972 team? Or is he a non-championship player for you?
You know what? I would consider him a non-championship player. I think he only played for the, partial of that first 10 or so games before he retired in 1971-72 season. And you just can't really, like, when you're thinking about who truly built up the team to win that season, who went out there and actually performed, right? And who actually won the games, that was not Elgin Baylor. Not to mention that it doesn't necessarily look great for him that the moment he leaves, they win, 33 straight.
That was going to be my next question. It's like,
NBA championship.
For me, I think part of that was a fit thing, because Elgin Baylor was great in half court sets. He liked to dominate kind of in the low post area. And he wasn't as much of a perimeter shooter as Jerry West. Then they bring in Bill Sharman, former great Boston Celtics, comes in to be the head coach of the Lakers to start that 71 to 72 season. And he's just preaching fast break, fast break, fast break. Then you got this 37-year-old Elgin Baylor, who doesn't necessarily play that way. And it's not really clicking and it's vibing with them. But you've got, Jerry West and you got Gail Goodrich and you got Wilt Chamberlain getting the rebound and throwing outlet passes and everything. So it was basically once he was out of the equation, I think they were probably like, okay, now we can play the way we really want to play. And so, yeah, I wouldn't say necessarily it's an indictment on him, but more just like because of his age and because of the type of player he was, I don't think it was ever a good fit. And because of that, I feel like people miss that context. They just think, oh, well, there must be something wrong with his game. The same narratives they use against Wilt Chamberlain, where it's like, oh, well, he was just a ball hog. That's why he never won, because he's a ball hog and that's a team killer, And so, but in reality, the same nuance that plays into this game and making teams work played into the teams and the games back then as well. So, but yeah, you, Mammon, you said he was your favorite player, right?
Yeah, I would say he's my favorite player, at least from that era. I just, when you go back and you watch the film of Elgin Baylor, I mean, it's amazing. I mean, you go back, it's the double pump shots up close. It's the transition dunks. It's the, scoop wrap around layups. It's the,
Yeah.
Passes. I mean, he was passing, behind his head, behind his back, out to the corner before, that was even largely a thing back then. And he just the court vision he had and just his ability just to, put the defense off balance and really just, the hang time. People talk about
That's
hang
what I was
time. They
gonna
talk about
say.
it,
Yep.
with Dr. J and Michael Jordan. But really, one of the people that really put hang time on the map was Elgin Baylor. And when you hear people, I mean, you hear Michael Jordan, you hear especially Kobe Bryant, he talks about the hang time, the rocker step, et cetera, et cetera. It's all Elgin Baylor, right? He's really the one that set the blueprint for all these players that many of us talk about now, whether we're, maybe more modern fans that watch, MJ or LeBron, or you were somebody that grew up and watched Dr. J play or Connie Hawkins. It's just, Elgin Baylor completely changed the game. And I think that he just, deserves more credit for, what it's worth than he probably receives.
So, another one of our first Johnny Talks Legend segments. This is a Legend member, Will. We actually did this segment already earlier, but unfortunately, I had technical difficulties, so I had to bring Will back. And so we're doing it again. Thank you so much for being patient with that, Will, and for coming back, and for being a Legend member as well, supporting the channel. I do seriously, seriously appreciate it. But I know what you wanted to talk about today, a little bit backstage, is the topic of longevity, how we factor that into how we look and rank basketball players, that sort of thing. So go ahead and elaborate on that for the audience, and then I'll go ahead and give my thoughts on it.
Well, thank you, Johnny. Always happy to support in any way I can. I just wanted to talk about longevity, of course, as you mentioned, and how it factors into our rankings, and how we, I guess, sort of set a almost double standard for the most part. How we view LeBron's longevity as the height of longevity, as it, I think you could say that it should be, maybe. Um, but how we elevate LeBron for his longevity and almost disparage Kareem for his longevity. And how, and I know this is kind of a hot take, maybe, how LeBron's longevity is, in a way, I think a little bit overrated. I think we almost, when are we going to look at it as you've been playing for 22 years and only won 4 championships?
Yeah.
Considering that basketball is the sport where I should say this, I say the sport, the team sport, where the individual can have the most impact on the game. Obviously, transcendent players in all sports can have an enormous impact, but basketball is the sport where it's most common.
Yeah.
And considering that that should be the case, and how LeBron's had so much help, considering how in every team that he's won a championship on has had at least one other, I would say, top 10 player. And for his other teams, the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Miami Heat, he's had 2 other top 20 players.
Right.
How is it that he's not won more? Why do we elevate his longevity considering his last 7 years at the Lakers haven't amounted to much outside of one championship?
Yeah.
And why does Kareem get disparaged so much, considering that his last 10 years at the Lakers, particularly at the very least, obviously it's going to get brought up with Magic. But he won 5 championships in his
Yeah.
last 8 years in the league. And at least 2 of those years he was a massive contributor. Like, you can't really take away from him the 85 finals MVP or the fact that he was, in my opinion, the best player on the 1980 team that won the championship.
For sure. Magic takes credit for the clincher.
Oh,
but
yes.
There was no question throughout that. You're absolutely
Yes.
right. Kareem was the best. What frustrates me about the longevity thing is not people valuing it, because obviously
Yes.
in terms of everything in life, like, you'd rather have longevity. My computer
Yes.
that's working here right now, marriage, anything, you want it to last as long as possible. You want quality and length out of it, you know. The problem is, and I agree with you, what your take on it is, I think with some players it's applied inconsistently, or we're picking and choosing. And I think a good example of that is, like, one thing you can't take away from LeBron is he has been an MVP candidate or an MVP caliber player. Let's just even say all NBA player for like over 2 decades. Okay. Like, that's,
Yes.
to me, that's incredible. With that being said, I'm not going to call him the greatest scorer of all time because he scored a lot for a long time consistently, when we weren't even saying that about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar when he held the record, you know, before LeBron did. So like your point on that, I didn't see LeBron fans claiming that Kareem was the greatest scorer of all time when the record was his. But not only that, but the same ways you're going to praise a guy for being around a long time and accumulating a lot, he is also the all-time leader in missed field goal attempts and turnovers as well. And so, again, like, is it something you factor in? Is it something that should contribute positively? Yes, but it shouldn't be the be-all, end-all. And I feel like that is... Because, you know, even with LeBron, he is now the NBA's all-time leading scorer, but the thing they like to bring up right afterwards is, you know, well, he might end his career second all-time in assists. You know, he does both. Impressive. Very incredible. But you could even say the same thing about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, at least for a time, where he was the NBA's all-time leading scorer, and he was third in blocks. But because they didn't even track his first few seasons in the NBA, because blocks were not yet tracked, he should be the all-time leader in blocked shots as well. And
True.
but again, that's not usually argued for in his favor. And so, yeah, I do think it's unfairly applied. I think what matters the most to me is how you dominated the competition when you were playing. And even a guy like Magic Johnson, who usually doesn't get enough credit in this argument, I mean, even with Larry Bird standing in his way, he won 5 NBA championships in the span of like 12 seasons. You know, so you're talking about more rings in less time, which is really crazy. And when I say less time, almost half the amount of time. I think LeBron's got a couple more seasons left in the tank, to be honest. I know he wants to play with his youngest son, and based on how athletic he is, I still think he can go a couple more years. And if this was going to be his final year, I think he would have let us know already so he can get that farewell tour. But yeah, so my opinion on it is, it is an important thing to consider, but I definitely feel like it's overplayed, because a lot of the same people who will say LeBron's the greatest at this and that because of the longevity are the same people who like take a dump on guys like John Stockton. I'm like, he had 19 seasons in the NBA, made the playoffs like every year of his career, is the all-time leader in assists, not even close, and in steals, and that's not really all that close either. But for some reason, he doesn't get praised for that same aspect, which is longevity. So, do you have any thoughts on that?
I do have a lot of thoughts on that, to be honest. You talk about how Magic won 5 championships in almost half the time, and you are correct on that one. You are correct. But no one talks about how Jordan won 6 championships in only 11 full seasons with the Bulls.
Right.
Yeah, no one ever brings that up, and it's crazy how that never gets brought up. Even if you want to say, oh, but what about his 2 seasons where he was severely hampered by injuries? That counts as 13 seasons. That's still 6 championships in 13 seasons, excluding the Wizards, of course. And the other thing I want to bring up is how, yes, LeBron's got his massive longevity, and KD's got his longevity, and so does Steph. And a lot of players have a high level of longevity, but no one ever wants to bring up durability. No one ever wants to bring
Sure.
up how in 12 seasons, in his 12 seasons, not including the years that were hampered by injuries and the like. I think there were 12 seasons where he played a minimum of 78 games.
Yeah.
And I don't think many NBA players today can actually say that.
Mm-hmm.
And 11 of them were 80 or more, and 9 of them were all 82.
Yeah.
And I don't think many can actually say that for even 1 second.
That's a great point because although longevity matters, so does durability in every aspect of life. And for some reason, that doesn't get celebrated today. It's like we want to pick and choose whatever fits our favorite players. So no,
Yeah.
it is absolutely a great point. And the other thing that usually isn't acknowledged is longevity and guys lasting a long time. I'm not completely trying to take it away from LeBron because he has lasted a very, very long time. But at the same time, that is becoming more common in pretty much every sport. Like literally, like
Yeah.
every sport. It used to be guys in their 30s were basically done in
We're
the sport of
retiring.
tennis. Yeah, in the sport of tennis. But now you got, Federer, Nadal, and
Djokovic.
Djokovic, yeah,
Yep.
that just literally being dominant forces.
Yeah.
And this last year was like the first time that none of them had like made the cut, So it was
Yeah.
like, and they're in their high 30s now. I like the NFL. Frank Gore played a running back, played into his late 30s, which is extremely rare
wow.
for that sports. But now that's happening. Tom Brady was in his mid 40s, winning a Super Bowl in the NFL.
Yeah.
And so when you look at just like kind of sports across the board, you're seeing more guys lasting longer because of modern medicine, because of just modern technology. Now they have physical trainers with them all the time. And plus, they're trying to manage how long they last by taking, certain nights off, that
Load
sort of thing.
management.
Exactly. Now that's celebrated as compared to in the 80s and 90s, where playing every
Yeah.
game and playing through injury was kind of the thing that was celebrated at the time. And
Yeah.
so I think that's, a part of that's missed. And it always works in favor of the modern player saying, oh, well, look at how long he lasted. My question would be, how long could guys like Larry Bird, for example, have lasted if he was taking better care of himself, if he was playing within the parameters of the modern league, where he takes certain nights off and he's not punishing his body as much? You could have seen a 16, 17-year career for him. And now how strong is his GOAT resume, And that applies to all of them, of course, Jordan and all that. And so, yeah, it sounds like to me and you are just on the same page in the sense that it counts for something, but I mean, you could even make a video and I could title it right now, Longevity is Overrated. And as far as like how people are using it and how people are applying it consistently, yeah, I could definitely make that argument that I feel like it's a little bit overrated. You rather have it than not have it. But again, it gets treated too often like it's the most important thing.
Yeah.
It's not.
I think that's correct. I think there is another aspect to it as well. Because I think to me there's three levels of longevity. There is the first where it's simply you're playing for a long time. I'm going to use some very harsh examples here, like your KG, your Vince Carter, your Dirk Nowitzki. They, after a certain point, they didn't really do much.
Yeah.
Then you've got your second level, which is where I believe LeBron is at, where you're playing for a long time at an elite level, which is, well, he's still playing at a high level. He's still all NBA caliber, but again, it's not really amounting to too much. Then you've got your third level, which is where the likes of Messi and Djokovic come in,
Yeah.
Where Djokovic, I mean, in 2023, he won 2 Grand Slams, I believe. I think he might have even won 3. Messi in 2024 with Argentina won the Copa America. In the 2022 to 23 season, he won the World Cup with Argentina, and in 2023 was the Ballon d'Or winner, which is the equivalent of the MVP for the NBA, which he's done 8 times.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Wow.
absolutely absurd. It is absolutely absurd. And when you look at it over the course of their career, Messi, because this is where another aspect of longevity comes in. How much do you want it to be where you've played at a high level, but that's about it? And how much do you want it to be where you were arguably the best in the world for a long time? Because Messi and Djokovic as well were both, you could make a very strong argument that they were the best in the world. Messi for 16 years and Djokovic for 15 years.
Yep.
Notice how both of them, they were the best in the world for longer than Jordan had a career. Not to take
Yeah,
away
good
from
point.
Jordan, but
Yeah.
that is also insane.
Yeah.
I mean,
for
Messi,
sure.
as soon as he debuted, Ronaldinho turned around and said, I'm not even the best player at Barcelona. That was the equivalent of the reigning MVP saying that he's not even the best player on his own team.
Wow. I guess I would ask this question, and this could be a question for the chat as well. Would be, would you rather, would you rather have a career where you end your career with, say, 3 or 4 championship rings, or continue your career for another 8 or 9 seasons after that last championship ring, but all you achieve in that are first round exits and missing the playoffs? And now, I mean, I think that is a genuine question, because I do think some people would take that. You got more years competing, you got more years enjoying the game you love.
You've got more money.
You've got more money, you've got more statistics, you're higher on the all-time rankings, but at the same time, it kind of dilutes that idea of you dominating the league. I enjoy the Wizards years. They're fun to talk about. But God, I'm glad Jordan didn't play for another 4 or 5 years on the Wizards, because that would have been ugly, and I would have got tired of the image of seeing Michael Jordan missing the playoffs and getting injured. And so I raised this question with LeBron, where I made a video saying, is his longevity actually hurting his legacy? And man, you can only imagine how mad the LeBron fans were in the comments. But I think that's a genuine question. It's a good question. Yeah, so you saw it. Yeah.
I saw it. They were real mad. But my first thought where I saw that video was, he ain't lying. That was my first thought. It's just like, it's like the old man face. Like, he ain't lying. He's right.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, can LeBron change that? Absolutely. He could change it if he has another great playoff run or wins a championship at the state of his career, but that's the thing, he keeps making it to the playoffs, and I see a lot of LeBron fans, or just people who still have confidence in him, being like, LeBron in the playoffs,
Wolves,
you gotta
bro.
like he's gonna hit that switch, and it's like, he hasn't really hit that switch since 2020. Like, it's been a long time now. So I think we're on the same page. And guys, in the comment section, let us know below. I think it's something to factor in. Obviously, you'd rather have it than not have it if it's productive. But you don't want, to me, you don't want longevity if the best it's going to get you is mediocrity. And what I mean is mediocrity in terms of results. Because at the end of the day, when everybody's getting ready in training camp, it's all about the championship ring. So if you get your stats and you're not winning, what do we call that? We call that empty stats. You know, that's always what it's been. And so for me, I'd rather have the guy who dominated his era outright rather than a guy who did it for a very long time but didn't win as much. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All right. So today is our first ever Legends member section of a Johnny Talks podcast. And I want to thank Zinc, who's one of our Legends members. He wanted to join us on this recording Wednesday, and he's got a question. He's got some thoughts, and that's how this works. If you become a Legend member, which is a 3rd tier membership, you could join in for these podcasts on the Johnny Talks podcast, and you can talk with us, and you get one of these per month. and you can pick the topic, whatever you want. And so we're going to go ahead and get started now. I'm going to pass it over to Zinc. He's going to ask his question, but also give his thoughts on it as well. So, Zinc, go ahead.
Hey, thanks, Yanni. Thanks for having me. What I was wondering, where you come on the whole separate the art between the art and the artist,
Mm-hmm.
because when it comes to players, it's like a bit confusing. Like
Sure.
when they have their top 75 players and they have this whole ceremony, and I'm thinking like, man, if I was one of those guys, I wouldn't want to be in the same room with Karl Malone.
For sure. Yeah.
And then if you're also ranking players like, let's say, Bill and Beer, which I know the guy was actually a great basketball player, but he's also the dirtiest player ever.
Sure.
But it's tricky, like, where do you rank these guys? Because you say, well, part of your success is playing like against the rules of the game or against the fair play. So I don't know if we should rank him very high, but
Yeah.
has nothing to do with what he did on the court. But I don't know, it's tricky. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know totally what you mean. I think for me personally, I think there has to be a distinction between like how fans talk about the basketball players and like how the NBA honors them. To me, I think the NBA's role is way more complex and all that. Because, I mean, again, when I see Karl Malone being honored, when I see like certain players not being in the top 75 or not making the Hall of Fame because of things they did or didn't do, but then other players like Karl Malone, can like be honored in these ways. It seems crazy, hypocritical, inconsistent, all that sort of thing. For me, as far as drawing a line from talking purely basketball, basically for me, there is no line. It's just basketball. I don't celebrate Karl Malone. I did not root for him when I was a kid. He's not one of my favorite players. But at the same time, like, I think history is important. I think basketball history is important. And I'm not going to pretend that, like, his career didn't happen just because, like, he's an awful person. You know what I'm saying? I will acknowledge that he's not a great person. But, if somebody was to rank my power forwards, I'm still going to do it the same. And if you start factoring in the quality of person or how you view them personally and factoring that into how you rank them, dude, it's a mess. Like at that point, like Michael Jordan's not even my GOAT anymore because like the thing I can't stand about MJ is his best friend for a long time, or one of his best friends, Charles Barkley made like one negative comment about him, and now he's like, well, we're not friends anymore. Like there's got to be this crazy alliance where you can't, like, to me that's wild. And so,
and when he did to Kwame too, it's like,
no, there's a lot of
forgive
things.
him for being the GOAT, but man, that's tough.
And I mean, his own teammates in the last dance described him as an a-hole. And so I think even probably MJ knows that to a certain extent. So as far as like how I factored it in, it doesn't factor into my rankings. But I will not root for a guy if I certainly don't condone something he did. And if I was in the NBA, I think that's a whole lot different because, again, someone like Karl, do you want him to be a role model to kids? Is he somebody that you make statues over? That's where their job is a whole lot more complicated than it is for like us who like rank the guys. It's because you're talking about like how they're remembered and who people are looking up to. You know what I'm saying? So Dario, do you have any thoughts on that?
I pretty much agree with you on most of those points. What I will say is it also depends, I think, sometimes on like how good the guy was. Like Karl Malone is one of those guys that you have to talk about. He was MVP. He went to had multiple finals runs, was on like the Lakers at some point too, like towards the end of his career.
So you're making the point, like, are you just saying like he's too big to ignore, like from a history standpoint?
I feel like for some of these guys, it's because you're embedded in league history.
The question comes in: does the NBA have a responsibility to penalize its players for things that are not NBA related? Like because it's like technically that's the court of law's responsibility. And so does the NBA even get involved in that? Clearly they do, because they still like there's substance abuse stuff. That has nothing to do with performance enhancing that they still crack down and suspend people for. And so that happens. And so that's when people look at stuff like, okay, so this guy's paying for it, but this guy, we still honor in the top 75 and all that sort of thing. I think that's where a lot of people get frustrated at the inconsistencies.
But even like the NBA could do something, and let's say Karl Malone, we're using the example because he's the
The
worst one,
apex
let's
of
say.
terrible.
But
Yeah.
like, I don't want the NBA to suspend Anthony Edwards. Like, yeah, some people's morality disagree with whatever he's done, but he's a great player. And whatever he's done is not criminal. He's not accused of anything, so I don't want him to
Are you
his
talking about like
career
the
to.
Mama situation?
Yeah, right. Like a lot of people disagree with that, but that's no reason to suspend the guy. This has nothing to do with basketball.
Yeah, see, that's where I'm saying like that's where it crosses over into that line of is it the NBA's responsibility to handle it? Because if the NBA was to step in there, they're basically making a statement on how basically they govern these life choices that are not affecting the league. So it's tough, you know. It's like that consistency thing where you're going to condemn certain things and not others. I think that, you know, they need to be in many cases hands off and let like the court of law, let the state laws and everything handle themselves. But in situations that are just like they also have to monitor how much of a role model is this guy. You know, is this the kind of person that we want to be like one of our faces of the league? Is this the kind of person that we want to be like promoting for our product? And they have to consider that too. So honestly, having this entire conversation and tackling all the different angles and aspects of it within like 15 minutes is probably just really difficult to do in general because it's a really weighty topic and I think it's a really good discussion. But yeah, I think the NBA especially has a greater responsibility than fans to be like, it's not just about acknowledging history, it's who are you celebrating? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think that matters a lot. So.